What follows is a work built from the crystallized ashes of a life I once thought was certain. You will soon be witness to prose written by a soul with all reactor shielding stripped. Love it, hate it, whatever the case may be, I thank you for taking the time to engage with my work. Leave of Absence, a Project Tension story, by Stephen Campbell. Chapter 1, Entropy. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I see the end of all things. In hindsight, it wasn't the end. I'm still alive after all. Beyond that selfish fact, a shard of what I fought for remains. My country, Grecker, persists on the homeworld. Even then, only as a digit of something once whole. The fact we kept together as a nation at all astounds me, perhaps even more than my own survival. In truth, many more of us lived through it than we likely deserve. We all live beneath a shattered sky full of what was, yet few alive today can say they had a direct hand in breaking the world. I can. My name is Travis Costa. I was an infantryman during the war that broke the sky. That's a fact I have a hard time contemplating whenever it bubbles up. Harder still when I realize I'm still serving all this time later. Better not to dwell. Drail, the home world, ended twice. First when the rock hit, second when the war came. Debate is still ongoing whether we should start the calendar all over again like the first time. If we did, it's been 20 Justara since the exchange. 9 months to a Justara. If there's one thing that managed to survive the end of everything, it's booze. You don't need an autoforge complex to ferment sugarcane. For that matter, neither do you need a fusion-powered electrical grid to bottle it. I don't dwell on economics. I know the precise pricing of kachaka in every establishment from here to my barracks. Soldiers gave up a lot after the war, we all did. But you'd have to wipe out humanity itself to stop men like us from drinking. For a time, even as space debris bred more space debris in orbit, people in Alpania kept up normality as best they could. Having escaped direct strategic targeting, they turned to purposeful ignorance. This manifested in the continuation of vices. Electronic whimsy of all sorts bloomed in the wake of the war. Social programs, blogs, entertainment. In the mercantile space, Bartoan silk and other luxuries changed hands over online storefronts. Strange in the case of the silk that, citizens of Grecker buying goods from a society their own culture killed. Consumerism kept up until ships stopped coming into harbor. All of that and more vanished, simply, through executive order. It took less than 2 weeks after the last flash for the government, at the direction of CENTCOM, to implement the Emergency Resource Reallocation Act. That law, and her subclauses, worked as quickly as the atomic warhead shaped everywhere else. Where fusion weapons removed the trappings of high society through thermal radii and shockwaves on the mainland, we did it to ourselves through paperwork. Not a place in the Alpanian archipelago escaped the march of inventory clerks and civic reorganizers. Exceptions to the act are sparse yet exacting. The only exception I cared about, clubs still thrum with music from speakers and sparkle with strobe light installations. My choice venue today is a club called Entropy. Much to my surprise, and to the annoyance of the clerk who pointed to the fact board years ago, the name came long before the broken sky. The moody red lighting and artful shadows came from a weary nihilistic youth subculture, the types who wore too much black eyeliner and preferred shades of gray over anything bright. I sit now with my friend Alan in a half-shadow occluded booth. He was once a manager of matter fabrication specialists, back when such things still mattered. The sound of the airy electric guitar dwelling in the club's speakers dies out to nothing. The playlist buffers, a usual symptom of a rate-limited data connection. The sound system lingers in the limbo of silence as it claws at the crowded data net for a tune. Alan perceives this absence of ambience just as I do. He uses the lull to prepare a conversation. I can tell as much by how his glass clicks against the ruby glass table between us. He's had too much tonight, this I know. I lean back into the cherry red fake leather despite how cold it is to brace myself for his inanity.
You know,
the man huffs out with the type of whimsy reserved for self-assured people who claim to know the truth. There's a long delay after that. Something the slur in his syllables makes me forgive. What he says next reaffirms my stance that he's just as clueless as I am on his chosen subject. The cold of the leather against my skin gradually regulates as I listen to his stumbling, delayed continuation. I bet the war was on accident. An accident? I believe in mistakes, sure, but it takes more than an accident to torch a solar system. Rational actors, state actors chiefly amongst them, don't fuck it up this badly. Someone started it, and that someone had a reason. Better not to dwell. You told me a week ago the Bartones started it. I have an explosive urge to say more that I diffuse with a simple assessment of his condition. He's not saying these things to really find an answer. The leather creaks as I lean forward, my elbows finding a landing pad atop the glass. The table protests with a squeak as I press my elbows down, the metal feet scraping against the tile. Comfortable, I rest my chin on my balled-together hands. Does it really matter? Of course it matters, Trav. Gotta find the root of it someday. I think we'd all feel a bit better knowing why it happened, you know? Alan takes a brief, yet distinguished in the corporate way of Sir Dodo, sip of his drink. The way he twirls the glass before and after, it's as if he's pretending the cachaca he's swilling is some orbital cylinder grape wine you need to air out. Put a face on it? We all lived through it. We have a face for what it was, cut and polished, like a bust in a hall of Grecker's kings. But some, like Alan, want a nicer portrait. One that smooths over the gargoyle the exchange left behind. It's not foolish. If nothing else, I can respect the desire to find something evocative, purposeful, behind the folly. Someone had to have a reason, right? Of course they did. Come on, Trav. Never pitched in on this, not once, in all the years. Alan scoots down the booth and turns until his back conforms against the wall. His polished onyx-hued shoes hang out into the wider club, potential landmines for a poor, hurried waiter. From his new position, deep in the shadows, Alan feels like an echo of my subconscious. What do you think happened 20 babies ago? Come on, tell me. Babies. That's slang for a Justara. Takes about one of them for a child to be born. Odd hearing it from Alan of all people. Nevertheless, the exact origin of the Justara came from an old conqueror king's pregnancy length. Couldn't tell you which one. Social studies was a lifetime ago. 2 words, if your drunk ass can handle them. I remain rigid in my craned forward posture, eyes scrying the darkness for a glimpse of his face. Best I can make out are his eyes, glittering in the crimson lighting. Like his irises are molten. 2 words to define a war that broke it all. My poem to understand, written in strategic lingo, so if it makes it any easier to dwell. Escalation ladder. Sounds like something from a corporate memo. Escalation ladder. Sales strategy or something? Alan laughs. He's right, and I find myself smirking despite myself. We both sit for a handful of seconds, like this, simply processing the humor. Sensing our quiet, the long-struggling audio system finally downloads the next track. Deep-hued synths plow and hum in the low bass range. RGB strobes and light strips match the pitch and intensity of the bass like the flashes of a slow-motion gunfight. So what do you mean by that exactly? Not really a reason. Alan's face catches a burst of rose-tinted light strobing as he leans forward. His pale flesh absorbs the light wholly, perfectly, until he's an afterimage of an artery-hit rifleman. You're going somewhere with that. Won't let you slip away now. The new song builds into its full stature. Thankfully, this tune is nowhere near as loud as the guitar ensemble playing prior. Slowly, deliberately, the red lighting blue shifts into a sapphire hue as the first drums kick in. Then, all at once, a lady fairy begins to sing through overworked speakers. We both focus on her sex through lyrics, the way she massages the animal part of your brain like a surgeon. Been years since I've heard that voice. She used to perform around here, in Entropy and elsewhere. Club favorite, even after The Flash. Her voice lingers, haunts me. She used to be everywhere, like a specter of music. People swear they never heard the same song from her twice. Wonder where she's been all this time. Hey, stay with me, Trav. Owe me this much, yeah? Alan snaps his fingers. Here I was hoping he'd forget and move on. But that's why Alan stuck around in Serdodo this long, even post-nationalization. Out of all the figures I'd met during my decades ago internship with the company, he's the most enduring. Driven, one could say. He's perhaps the main reason the company managed to stumble back into shape post-Flash. Damn proud of that fact, too, why he wears his company name tag even now. I see the laminated plastic glisten in strobe light blue over his heart. A smiling photo, 20 Justara out of date. Serdodo in blocky bold. Alan Mushi. Smartest man, at least when it comes to management, I've ever met. But in this case, his drive is a weapon I can't avoid. Fuck me, guess I gotta talk about the war for real. First off, I haven't the slightest fucking clue why the exchange happened, alright? But the support columns that were my arms fall away, and I let my head drop chin down into my chest. I wheeze in a deep, full-lunged breath, then fixate my face toward Alan. But we can triangulate a potential reason based on how things happened, right? Yeah, sure. And that's where the escalation ladder comes in, yeah? Alan nods, motioning in a flurry of a ring-wearing hand to continue. The sparkle of the strobes and the ring's metallicity leaves a twinge of a spot in my vision. I blink it away and lean fully forward again. Yes, the exchange was a classic example, textbook almost, of a runaway escalation ladder. I pause briefly to appreciate the fairy singer's tune, just for a heartbeat, then continue. Started small, got bigger, or kept on getting bigger and bigger. Yeah? Alan is fixated now, focused and laser-locked on my eyes. He's puffed up in that human resources lethality he's wielded all his life. I see now, perhaps way too late, that he'd been getting me to disarm the whole evening. For this conversation, no doubt. I almost want to chuckle, but I'm really not in the mood. That's Alan for you. Makes you think he's just a random Joe, only to get you right where he wants you. Yeah. Whatever started it was small enough nobody felt like flipping the table. And by that, I mean going mass destructive. I scratch the scruff underneath my chin and squint, like some kind of professor, before going on. Again, no clue what, but it wasn't a preemptive strike or something. Barto would have pushed our shit in with bombs instantly, if so. Vice versa, really. He's quiet, waiting for me to keep going. How nice. The exchange, a bit of an odd name, too drill-centric. Born of the civic populace only remembering the nuclear exchange that bookended the whole thing. In actuality, the war was 5 days long. 5 days. I start like I'm responding to math flashcards. 6, maybe. Again, don't know the prelude, the inciting incident if you want to call it that, but 5 days is the timeline of events from my standpoint, being in the service. Alan squints. Hungry. Fox-like. Like this is a damn interview, or a performance review. I drink from my long-neglected glass of kachaka to stifle my displeasure. Day 1, an hour before midday, exactly 5 minutes after the hour. We got a military-wide stand-up order. Stand-up is the term we use for... how to say? I blink away, fizzing ghosts of warning strobes and stampeding boots. Basically means make yourself ready for a fight. But you're not at war yet. Highest alert across the whole military. Aviation, naval, ground forces, strategic lift service, even heavy shock guys like us. Kept us that way for a whole day. Loading selfies, checking equipment, clearing bases of civil contractors. We were even out on the highways, blocking off sections to prepare auxiliary runways. I swallow loud enough it defeats my lifelong tinnitus in honorable single combat. Strangely, I notice Alan's eyes light up in a kind of alarm, the type you get stepping into an unmarked minefield. Takes me a moment, but I realize my voice wavered for a sec, like the scene kids who started this club. Don't gotta talk about it if you're not up to it, Trav. Sorry for pushing. Alan raises the palm of his hand my way, a gesture of surrender. I shake my head, clear my throat in my mind. He sees me move to continue and stops me. You sure? I'm fine. Anyway, it was a fucking... silly. No enemy yet. We were grinding society to a halt. Thought it was a drill, a big one. I throw both hands up toward the ceiling in mimicry of Alan's momentary surrender. I laugh, a proper schoolboy laugh, just for a single note. Alan isn't sure whether to laugh with me. I see it in the wince his eyes make. Alan urges me softly with a gesture of his cup. He clutches his kachaka tightly, like he plans on spiderwebbing the glass with just a bit of muscle power. Things went kinetic on day 2.5. The water navy, you know, the ocean ships? I lift my hand toward him. A military bearing chop down the table that only makes it halfway toward him, pointing east. We started butting heads out in the ocean. Then the air war started. Conventional still. The synths grind away the feeling in my gut as the bass line picks up. Blue, oceanic and all-consuming, floods from all the strobes and light strips. Even the bulb mounted to the wall underneath the table flares. My legs look like reactor fuel rods stuffed deep in a coolant pool, bleeding out that eerie ghost blue glow. The whole club, all of Entropy and everyone in it, is swimming in this sapphire. That's why people come here. Blue, just like the final evening before we got stuck in, before the sky started to bleed. 2 days and 3/4. That's when Force Riptide, all of us, poured into a bunch of attack transports and tore off into the sky heading east. For a brief moment, I feel the same knot of terror in my gut as I did then. The unshakable feeling that this was all still a drill. Most of the flight, I still believed that, till I saw that cruiser rolling onto its back amidst a sea of flame, inflatable life rafts blazing like heaps of kindling. They managed to clear an air corridor for us. We were going to... My words die in the intrusive flashes only aphantasia could save me from. Try as I might to brace myself, to stop it, I cannot. The strobes are my enemy, a psychological weapon to immerse me in the war that broke the sky. I can't think about it. I can't dwell on it, won't dwell on it, and I have Alan to thank for my return to lucidity. Travis? Alan prods me. Not like a cattle herder, no. More like someone trying to coax a scared cat from their closet. He's not trying to get me to talk more. I see it in his blue-shifted eyes, the way he squints up his cheeks. I can't talk about it. Too hard for me, man. Don't know how I got here anyway. I take control of the conversation. No more, not for right now. Point is, the war started over something small. It wasn't an accident, but I don't think anyone wanted it to get this big. Entropy's piercing blue intensity dies a violent death as a new mountain erupts into formerly empty space. I glance at the newcomer at the end of our booth, expecting a waiter or another tipsy patron. Instead of dull economic familiarity, I find the third attendee to our table reservation. Am I too late? The newly arrived lady slides into the booth across from me. She's wearing 90 leather pants, deep coffee brown, polished to a gloss that mirrors Entropy's ghost light along her legs. From her waist up, she's wearing a perfectly white button-up spun from wool and silk simultaneously. Every seam in her shirt is laced with gold, and with this woman, it's likely real. Her face, slim and well-bred, expresses a kind of smug confidence at meeting old pals. Vivienne Aquil, merchantess from one of the fragments of Nindia. She's the sole vector for internationally sourced bauxite shipments reaching Grecker. She carries herself like a princess, but I find the word toothless next to the term pirate. Her pale blonde hair burns neon cerulean under Entropy's lights. Her skin fights hardest to retain its natural olive-arid hue, yet even it succumbs to blue. She's important enough they'd given her a firearm waiver. Lucky girl, not even I get to carry off base. The pistol she tucks under her left armpit jiggles as she shifts her posture. It's a gold-plated 90 model, top-loading with ammunition strips, no magazine. Antiquated yet lethal, like a knight's broadsword. In any case, it's from long before we ever took to the void. The weapon hue shifts into a shade of green, gold brilliance washed away by Entropy's overwhelming blue. Vivienne, the only woman I'd ever let myself care for. I'd lived through the war, and I still count myself lucky for that feeling being mutual. Amicable ending when it came time to make it something real. Too much physical distance. Shame. Hello? The lady clicks her talon-long nails into the tabletop. Her head twists slowly between me and Alan. She doesn't glance with her eyes like I would. She hums, leans back, then snaps her fingers with the intentionality of a starter gun. As if she's carrying a summoner's amulet, a waiter appears in an instant. In the time since her arrival, to her ordering her preferred drink, no more than 15 seconds pass. I finally speak as the waiter walks off. Hello, Vivi. I brink away her meteoric arrival and balance my senses. We were just talking about the war. Why it happened? She darts her eyes toward Alan, not to look, but to perform the act of glancing. That truly is his favorite icebreaker topic, she knows it. Her face stays locked toward me. I'm the focus. Display finished, her eyes snap back toward me like a pulled taut hair tie. If I were to guess, His Royal Highness chose to divorce his wife. That was always bound to end up messy. Queen Lysandra, Bartoan or not, was the only thing King Ray Doric loved more than his son, Ian. A trained reflex prickles my skin at the incrimination of my king, a soldier's ire. The work required to undo the emotion comes not from me, but Vivienne. She rests her hand atop mine, tickles her nails along my wrist. Her conjuration to dispel my displeasure concludes in a smile. She hadn't meant it to land that way. Vivienne pulls her hand away from mine. Without pause, she uses it instead to take the base of the wine glass the waiter offers. She thanks the man by giving him a polished 90 coin as a tip, performative, given Grecker's digital currency. The smile she'd used to send him on his way hides behind her glass. The charming grin is long gone by the time she rests her wine on the table. I can say this, in truth, the merchantess hums and cups her chin with her nails. Trade volume between Bartow and Grecker, highest it ever was shortly before the war. You think you were in economic union with that shared 1 coin a year tariff ceremony? Whatever, pointless to think of it now. Vivienne flicks her gaze to my right bicep, eyelids half closed in a deliberate inspection. Just as I start to follow her gaze, her eyes snap back to mine. Caught in that look, I nurse for my kachaka. She answers my avoidance with her own, a cigarillo she lights so fast I barely catch the flick of the lighter. Her skin returns to its normal hue for an instant as she takes her first drag. Just as quickly, the blue strobes smother this flare-up of unapproved naturality. You still wear that totem, Not much has changed. Vivienne gestures toward my arm with the finger holding her cigarillo. She knows. It was the first thing she ever spoke to me about. My armband, signifier of my role and my belonging to Riptide. She tickles my hand preemptively to reassure me it's just a joke, not that I need it at that time. Always, I state with that much fire behind the grunt. Her eyes sparkle playfully, then slide toward Alan. Gentle pleasantries trade between them, something I tune out. Nobody gets to call my field identifier a totem, not even Vivienne. It's probably the drink defanging me, but honestly, I know what the green cloth wrapped around my biceps signifies. I don't need to defend it. It's a better form of open carry than she can ever dream. It's a banner, almost, that makes the statistical chance of defending myself vanish. With my armband, not a soul in this country would risk it. My name is the only thing that clicks me back into the social wavelength. No, I met Travis a few years before the war. He interned in the division of floor below me. I ran into him first when his floor manager sent him to my wing for a cross-check on a rec form. You know, Alan grunts. What did you do, Trav? Something wireless? Middle branch of the company? Superluminal Communications Division, I answer with an extended middle finger. A Bartoan gesture the cultural familiarization handbooks taught me. Alan's eyes glaze over at the provocation while Vivienne smirks. I smile, somehow warmly. That was just a paper and coffee runner. The blue theme, tied to the synth songs of the fairy singer's provenance, snaps suddenly into an ostentatious yellow. The blaze is far too bright. Even Vivienne, attuned to gold, squeezes her eyes shut. The light shifts from this new hue to a dark purple, then red, then a sunset orange. Telltale signs of someone, somewhere, fumbling desperately in an RGB control unit. With Entropy's nuclear war in miniature resolved, Vivienne speaks. Superluminal. Wow, so you flashed light bulbs at people. Mr. Dodo needed a whole division for that? Vivienne bats her eyelashes in mock astonishment. The burning tip of her cigarillo blooms into a bonfire radiance as she sucks down enough natural insecticide to kill most small rodents. Not to be outdone by Alan's prior prodding, she continues. They always said Grecker was behind the times. Nah, it was just a fancy radio. You know, skip the whole delay in off-world communications, Alan says. He cracks his neck, then stretches rigidly, contorting like a beetle caught in her tobacco smoke. Decades in an office chair finally caught up to him. The financial wing made more in a quarter than they did in a Destara. Mr. Barrett was the only one who stopped us from selling the branch off. Long story short, I didn't get invited back to the company after my term. Joined the army right after. Thanks, Alan. I feel dimples form on my cheek. The smile I send is a lot wider than I'm used to. He looks unsure of himself for an instant, but he returns it just as broadly. That's what you get for using me as a reference. Never said I was good at my job. Alan gives me a rare, self-deprecating grin, rarer even than my own. This is too much even for him. He corrects the anomaly with a quick addition. Back then. Believe it or not, Army was a lot less stressful than Sir Dodo. My offering earns a proper laugh from Alan. Vivienne, for her part, only huffs at this. More to feel included than actually feeling it. I wink at her. She returns the gesture with her opposite eye. I take a far less active role in the conversation after that. The alcohol wins eventually. It always does. It's not as if I drink enough of it to build a tolerance in the field too much. The sunset orange lasts 30 minutes, a cue for the time of day. Once done, entropy transfers to night hues. Deep UV blues, witchlight greens. The BPM and the track lowers. The genres shift to pianos and synth violins. The club is a dark purple when Vivienne and Alan, both yawning for an hour straight, choose to leave. It's an alien thing, watching people submit to biological urges you no longer perceive. Vivienne looms over me. There's a small smile on her face as Alan slips from the booth she'd risen from. I knock back my glass and look up at her. For an instant, I feel the heat of what we'd locked away. Just long enough to remind me, and not powerful enough to stop me from smothering it. Get some sleep, T, Vivienne says. Sure thing. I never feel comfortable lying to her face, but with sleep, it comes naturally. As Alan slinks off toward the exit, the merchantess takes the chance to lean down lower, closer. She's tired. All that sharp social precision is just a myth now. For a moment, I'm uncertain just where this is going. Do you mind coming to the port? I know it's the last day of your leave tomorrow, but it would be nice to catch up without Mr. Corporate, yes? Vivienne attempts to hide her ulterior motive, fails immediately. You need something fixed, don't you? I raise an eyebrow. And that, but that's only an aside. For me, T, she purses her lips. Yeah, all right, I'll be there by midday. Let me sleep in some. I tell her that sweet lie again. She yawns, as if to taunt me. See you then. Vivienne slinks away. Just me in my chosen corner of entropy. Something lurks in me. A Dune Lynx predator circling just beyond the edge of my mental campfire. 2 days and 3/4. Better not to dwell. Yet dwell I do. The exchange lingers, despite my efforts to quench it, on the forefront of my mind. That is, until a far more threatening realization appears. The assholes left me with the bill. Damn it. Thank you for listening to Chapter 1 of Leave of Absence. Chapter 1 is best considered to be a type of teaser, I suppose. The remainder of this act will be released all at once when it is written. This is simply to gauge interest and to start, getting word out that this is a project. Many of you know Project Tension from the Arma stuff. It's high time that it is something other than just Arma stuff. In fact, I intend to release this chapter broadly simultaneously to an Arma op. So, as a cross promotion, oh boy. And anyway, I don't need to ramble. The Act 1, the rest of it, it's all planned out. It's all ready to go. I have 3 more chapters done. I just, there's like 6 additional I gotta do, polishing it and all that. Shouldn't take too crazy long if I focus on it. But it's difficult writing like this, knowing that people are actually going to see it. Anyway, enough rambling from me. If you're interested in the project and want to see more, or rather get updates and just chill, I guess, I have a Discord in the description below. Any questions, concerns, comments, just leave them below in the comment section. I'll get to them basically immediately since I'm a no-life.